know there ain't no stopping us. Fly without a boarding pass. Couldn't catch me, I'll be moving fast. Call me a shooting star. Let 'em know who you are. Flying up in a bar. Wish on a star. Time to show 'em who's in charge. Call me a shooting star. Didn't even get to bronze. I said I'm moving too far. Get to glass. Looking at a shooting star. Got more than a couple of people going mad. I swear they're rooting hard. Tell them I'd be big in the game like she went and got them breast implants. I said I'm moving too fast. Didn't even get to glance. I'm ready to eat up track like I'm seated in a restaurant. If you had swag like mine, you know it's best to flaunt. We aren't hating because you aren't. Shining like it's neon. Rock like kings of Leon. Shooting stars across the galaxy. I stand out, so don't be mad at me. Infiltrate, I'm with my strategy. When I turn up, then I just have to leave. Shooting stars across the galaxy. I stand out, so don't be mad at me. Infiltrate, I'm with my strategy. When I turn up, then I just have to leave. Yeah, shoot. Yeah, shoot.
Well, hello everyone. How are you doing? Oh, and it looks like my counter is fixed. That is fantastic. Well, I am doing much better today. For those of you who've been following my personal struggles, I did have my ketamine treatment yesterday. So already my mood is improved. It's I find it miraculous. You have any questions on that, you could always get with me at some point. But we've got a Get Ready With Me and various Liberty discussion today. I hope to be doing another show tonight. That's why I'm bothering to put on makeup now. And I'm hoping it's something you guys will be interested in. I've decided I'm going to start going through ballot access issues, not just for libertarians. I think that is an issue. And I want to make sure I have sound, because I remember I had that problem before. So let me just check my sound levels. Yes. Okay. So I'm finding that not just libertarians want to know about this, normies, if we should say that way, not that they want to know, they don't even know that they should know. So I think going through ballot access news and various ballot access issues would be quite educational for everyone involved. So before we get started, I got the first clip up is Dave Smith. Sometimes I don't even remember what clips I have. I think this was something I disagreed with Dave Smith on. The new word I taught the people at the Mises Caucus, I said it will be an ironic disagreement. It was surprising to me that that wasn't a typical word in most people's vocabularies. It's one that's used quite often in debate. You've probably heard of polemics. Well, there are also ironics. So there you go, a new word in your toolbox. But before we get to there, up here you can see is my Patreon. And I am asking you sincerely, if you like the work that I do and this extra time I put on, sometimes I sacrifice sleep to be able to do these things, please consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month, though you could do more and I won't complain. But it really does encourage me. And if you like this kind of libertarian commentary, please do. That's all I will say on that right now. Let's get started, and I guess I will learn what clip I put here a couple days ago once it starts. So let me see what I'm doing here. Here we go.
You know, to me, I wish this is like probably my central message to the Libertarian Party. It's like, it's not just a matter of being radical or moderate. It's a matter of being radical on the most important issues. You know, I don't know if you've seen this clip that it gets sent to me probably every single day. Everyone who sends it to me, by the way, I've seen.
Okay, I want to stop here for a second because I don't want to. My memory still isn't the greatest. And I'm putting on my makeup. I'm putting on my primer. As I say, you got to prime the paint before you put it on. I don't want to forget the comments I want to make. So I did a show before where I was disagreeing with Dave Smith on his position on immigration. And I had explained the principle of no particular orderism, which just in brief, for those who haven't seen it, no particular orderism is that you can't centrally plan liberty, that you have to take whatever opportunities present themselves, even though it might not be the preferred order in which you would like to eliminate the state or bring forth liberty, because other ones simply aren't on the table. So you can't say, I would rather get rid of the welfare state before opening the borders. If the opportunity is open to open the borders, you open the borders and then you use that as pressure to bring down the welfare state. However, the way that relates to this is where he said it's not a matter of being radical or moderate. Well, I'm not so sure if those were the terms that he wanted to use. It's odd because radical is both a methodology and an ideology. Not all ideological radicals are methodological radicals. Some ideological radicals are methodological, tongue twister, pragmatists. The opposite of radical is moderate. You can't be both. So when he says it's not a matter of being radical or moderate, it's a matter of being radical on the most important issues. Does he mean then, he didn't say this, so I'm guessing, and I hope he would clarify this. Does he mean then that you should be moderate on the less important issues? That is what I'm taking what he is saying, and I would highly disagree. So we'll continue. I just wanted to bring that forward. If you're an ideological radical, you're an ideological radical consistently. Now, perhaps he means you should be both an ideological and methodological radical on the most important issues, and you can remain being an ideological radical and then a methodological moderate, but I do not think moderate is a methodology. Pragmatism is. And perhaps that's what he means. Sometimes you've got to be very, very, very precise in what you're saying. Now, he does give an example where we can infer some of these things. So that's where we will continue. And I want to invite the audience. Please comment. I like these shows to be participatory. I don't have like a set game plan, and so there's no script to go off. In fact, the script is to go off script. So let's continue.
Already when they're trying to dunk on libertarians, but it's the thing about the debates at the LP in 2016 when it's the driver's license.
Yeah.
And it just, nothing makes libertarians look worse than that clip where it's like, hey, do you think we should have a driver's license? And everyone's like, what, you know, what's next? A license to toast in my own damn toaster. And everyone's like, screw driver's licenses. And then Gary Johnson up there says, what is just the most reasonable thing? He goes, I don't know. I mean, maybe you should have to take a test or something before you drive a car. And everyone's like, boo, you suck. And
okay, I will make a confession here. I was one of the people saying, boo, you statist. You kind of get caught up in the moment. That's normally not how I am, but that was my first convention. And yes, I got caught up in the moment, and I was very, very frustrated with Gary because of the Nazi cakes. And I think that's what Dave is ignoring here, or perhaps he forgot, is the background context. The people were primed to be irritated with Gary Johnson. He was pimping Bill Weld, who a lot of people did not want. If they wanted Gary, they did not want the cowardly lion, Bill Weld. And he was still going through the whole Nazi cake thing, where people wanted to bake a Nazi cake and bring it to the convention. I mean, that is the background. So they were quite primed to yell at him. It would be misplaced frustration due to the Nazi cake thing, not necessarily the driver's license. And libertarian conventions are just rowdy. And I actually don't think that makes libertarians look terribly bad, because here's what's funny. It's libertarians who keep bringing these things up. The people who watch C-SPAN is like some crazy cat ladies and maybe one political wonk at your work. The general public wasn't even aware of any of that. We made them aware of it by consistently harping on it. 2016 is ancient history. Even the people who weren't libertarians that saw it in 2016 don't remember it. I'm surprised he didn't bring up Naked Dancing Man. I think that would have been a more appropriate example. And the normies don't even remember that. And that's seared into my mind. I don't think I will ever forget that. I think I need therapy because of that. And I do think we have a comment, but it's probably just a hello. Yes. Matthew Mears says from Jordan B. Peterson, be precise in your speech. I always try to be very, very precise. And I have to thank my parents for that. A lot of people wonder how I gained the precision and how I gained such a large vocabulary. And I will say it's because they put books in front of me from as far back as I can remember, and not always necessarily age-appropriate books. And I don't mean subject matter that would be inappropriate, though my parents weren't too strict on that either. But reading level, it didn't matter. My mom was a member of the Book of the Month Club, and I read all the crap she got in. So yeah, that really, and I had, I was reading Nancy Drew. I had the whole series, very, very easy. So I want to pull up David Davis's comment here. And he said, no one wanted Bill well, but some people were probably thinking about bringing moderate Republicans to the party because of Trump. Perhaps. And it's incorrect to say nobody wanted Bill Weld. Actually, enough people wanted him that they voted for him, though not everyone that voted for him wanted him. Gary almost cried begging for Bill Weld. So I kind of blame Gary for Bill Weld. But there were people who came to convention that were on Bill Weld's campaign team. One of them is somebody that Dave Smith debated. Not going to mention any names. It was one of his first debates, so you can guess who that was very much stumping for Bill Weld and wrote for Bill Weld's blog called The Jack News after we already knew what a big fat liar he was. He didn't defect to the Republicans by then, but come on, we knew he was a liar. And I'll say it again, I'm the only one who got up there on the microphone and spoke out against Bill Weld. I tried to do it politely, but I did. Okay, let's continue.
Libertarians, can't we just realize this makes us look like assholes? Like, take a look at that. And by the way, no one even gave the correct answer, which is that, well, you could probably have a private company who would make sure that you're licensed on the roads. Whatever. That aside, it's like the correct answer, even from an anarcho-capitalist perspective, is like, who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? Let's focus on what actually matters. Like, and that to me is, if the libertarians want to be taken seriously, that's what it's about. It's about focusing on the issues that are actually destroying our country and saying, hey, we are on the side of human liberty on all of these issues. And so for the party, no matter who ends up winning or what caucus gets their candidate.
Okay, I'm going to stop there for 1 second, even though there's only a couple seconds left. I couldn't disagree more. I do think you need to highlight the issues of the day, obviously. And you need to highlight the important issues. But change might not be ready on those issues, and by bringing them up, you're priming them for change later. Perhaps it's something you don't think is quite as important, but the opportunity to change it exists now. So let's say, just for example, there was a great opportunity to legalize polygamous marriage, which is something that the libertarians do support now in the middle of COVID. But you could get that done. It would be a tremendous mistake to say, no, we can only focus on COVID and not this minor issue that few people care about. No, you do what can be done at the time it can be done without neglecting speaking out on the important issues. Plus, maybe it's just the radical individualist in me, but important to who, Dave? Maybe important to most people, but I don't get to say what's important to you. I don't know what's happened in your life or your priorities as to what's important to you. And I don't like not that Dave does this, but a lot of libertarians do, the concern trolling. When somebody is bringing up an issue they are passionate about, other libertarians go, don't we have more important things to focus on? You don't get to dictate other people's time. You go focus on those things instead of harassing the people. Is it a freedom issue? Is it a libertarian position? Then let people do what they want. I kind of view it the same way I do volunteers. Oftentimes affiliates have a mistake with volunteers. Like, let's just say they need somebody. I'm just going to pull something out my ass. We need somebody to do filing at the party office. And we have some volunteers, just a general roster. They didn't volunteer for that specifically. They just volunteered in general. But the person who volunteered hates filing. That's what you need, though. But this person is really good at something that you might consider tangential. Well, you might not know you need that thing that person is good at until they do it and you see how good it works. But when it comes to volunteers, you need to let them do what they love or you won't have volunteers for very long. You can't put square pegs in round holes. And you better just let the filing go undone until you find the perfect volunteer rather than trying to force that volunteer into a mold in which they don't fit. Let people find what they love and let it kill them. Same thing with issues. I don't tell people how to activist. I don't tell people the issues they are important about. They are concerned about is not important. I know plenty of people who had their kids seized by CPS, so that's all they care about. That's what they focus on. And really, they'll condemn, like, say, the vaccine passport idea, but that's not their main activism, and it's not my job to judge them for it. There was a guy in Florida for a while. I don't know why he had a wild hair up his ass for driver's licenses. But his name was Adrian Wiley. He used to be the chair of the Libertarian Party of Florida. Very interesting guy. I don't think he's in the party anymore. I hope he does come back. But he refused to get a driver's license. That was his thing, and he got arrested for it. And he got a lot of publicity for it. And I don't think the anarcho-capitalist answer is who cares? This is a nationwide ID right now. What do you mean, who cares? David Nolan, one of the founders of the party, certainly cared. He was getting really upset in an interview that, these things were sold to us just as to be something to show you could drive a car. And it's now become a life passport, hasn't it? What can you do without a driver's license? I know you can get a state ID, but most of the time it's because everyone else has driver's licenses. So who cares? Driver's licenses are actually a big deal. You need a license to move around in the modern way. And how do you think people are so accepting of the vaccine passports? What do you think we hear all the time? What are you so upset about having an ID for? You carry around a driver's license, don't you? One little thing that might not seem important leads down the road. We are now in real ID land, which is a national ID card. It is important. What do you mean, who cares? And he's right. Nobody gave the right libertarian answer, but I'm going to continue his clip and tell you why that was. But I want to see if anyone else here. And some people are saying they lost the signal, but signal's still going on my end. I think that's a Facebook issue. If you're on Facebook and the signal is weird, actually, it benefits me much more if you watch this on YouTube. I would really, really appreciate it. Okay, let's see here. Let me continue. Yeah, David Davis says, you can't get a job in some areas without a driver's license. Now, we're going to get into the voting thing, not today. I do have some clips I've saved on voting, but that will be a different get ready with me. So I don't want to, shoot my wad on that right now. Okay, so now let's continue here.
Or whatever. It's like if we all want to do something here, don't create another.
Wait, we all want to do something, but that something is a little vague. I know Dave says the most important issues are like the drug war, the overseas wars, and I agree with him. Those are extremely, extremely important issues. Some people don't really understand that nearly all of our loss of freedoms stems from the drug war. Like, it's almost like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. The drug war it has its tentacles and everything. But I don't get to tell people that they can't make they can't major on what I think is a minor. And the party, when it was most effective before 2001, didn't do that. They majored on everything. All freedom is important. And that kind of thinking, and I don't know Dave's view on things like the fair tax or consumption taxes. But now I just lost my train of thought here for a second. Oh, so people will say to that, well, the most important thing is that we reduce the tax load. This will reduce the tax load right now, even though, say, both of those, well, the fair tax, let's just deal with the fair tax, actually doesn't decrease government. It may decrease taxation. It may eliminate the IRS, but it then inserts the government as a third party in every single commercial transaction you do, or almost every single commercial transaction you do. So it actually expands the government. But people will say, that little bit of freedom is worth those people giving up so I can have less taxes. Well, you don't get to play dice with other people's freedom. You don't have the right to do that. You don't have the right to exchange a little bit of aggression to one person because you think it will relieve you in some way. So no, I fundamentally, absolutely disagree with him here. And I would really like to have a discussion with him on this.
Moment like that. How about don't ask the candidates that question at our debates?
Okay. Why didn't people give the right answer, and why was that question even asked to begin with? I disagree with the way they set up that debate. Let me be honest with you. I hate most debates to begin with anyway. I come from a debate background. I owned a theology debate forum for about a decade. It was one of the largest Christian theology debate forums on the internet, Theology Web, in case you want to go check it out. I don't own it anymore. When I decided I didn't want to do that anymore, I just gave it to some of my friends who were passionate about it. And the funny thing is, I never debated politics there. I hated it. Hated that portion. But I've seen actual debates where people actually change minds and you learn something. And most political debates are not that. Debates are not having pre-prepared. I know it's a type of debate, but for me, a real debate is not having a list of questions that some moderator asks that are pre-prepared and everyone gets 2 minutes to do it and then you move on. That's not a debate to me. If you watch some debates by a theologian named James White, that dude is a badass debater. And that is structured in a much different way where you have opening statements, closing statements, rebuttals, but and there's no pre-prepared questions. The most important part, though, is they have what's called cross-examination, where before closing statements, or is it after? It can be after, but usually before closing statements, each side gets to cross-examine each other in a certain 2-minute time limits. And the other person doesn't get to ask questions that time. They just have to answer. And that's where you pin them down where they were squirrely in their presentation. And you don't learn anything till you get to the cross-examination. That's where you learn which case is actually strong. And there's a proverb on that says, one man seems right until another argues his case. And you don't really argue until you have cross-examination. That's why our legal system has cross-examination. So those debates are useless. But why was so that's why the answer wasn't given. The time frames, it's just not set up to give answers. Now, why was that question asked to begin with? Well, there shouldn't have been questions, as I say. But that moderator was a Republican moderator who really did not, focused on the more sensationalistic aspects of libertarianism and wasn't there to focus it on ways that to make our candidates shine. And I don't mean that like in a prejudicial way, like trying to salt the soup. But this was all libertarian candidates at a libertarian convention. It wasn't set up in a way for us to choose our best candidate. It was a zoo. And that's another reason why you had people yelling statist and getting up and hooting and hollering. And that debate was at the beginning of an LP convention where we are, you guys are going to like this, full of piss and vinegar. Okay, I want to put Daniel's, a couple quotes up here. Okay, Matthew Mears says, I don't think Dave is telling people they can't be passionate on seemingly smaller issues. It seems like he's driving an argument on focus on the biggest things first. Let me disagree with you there. And in fact, no, not really disagree. You stated my objection. I think perhaps you're misunderstanding me. For why does anyone get to tell anyone what issues they have to focus on first? When you're passionate about smaller issues, those are your first issues. That's what being passionate about them means. So I think, Matthew, with all due respect, part one of your statement contradicted part two. And that's my objection. Let me continue. Jason said he thinks Dave would agree with me. I don't think so, but I would love to speak with him about this. I especially would like clarity on the terminology he's using with radical and moderate and methodology and ideology. Let me be clear. I'm an ideological radical, which you guys know, but I'm also a methodological radical. I'm finding that I'm more radical than most radicals, which kind of surprises me. Okay, so Daniel says, if something impacts you in a way that you lose your life, you lose all other freedoms forever. That's the logical way to prioritize relative importance of freedoms. I don't believe in a hierarchy of freedoms. And you don't get to infringe upon someone else's freedom in order to save your life. You don't get to do that. That's why Good Samaritan laws are not libertarian. You don't get to force somebody into rendering aid to somebody because they'll die, because you're infringing on that other. There's no such thing as positive rights. When you prioritize freedoms, you are creating positive rights, and there are no positive rights. The only obligation I have to your life is non-interference and non-aggression. And it's almost like, and I use the same argument, and I keep saying I'm going to do this show about Georgism. If you don't know what Georgism is, it's, what's the other word for it? Crap. Oh, geo-libertarianism. I make the same argument about how, let me just give, I know this is a shallow summary. Any Georgists in the audience, don't come for me. But it's basically like saying the earth belongs to everybody. You can't own the earth, but you can get exclusive use of land. It's all about land. And in order to get exclusive use of the land, you have to pay a fee to society. Well, what if in society, if we all own the land equally, what if I would rather have the land rather than the fee that person's paying? You don't get to tell me what my rights are worth to me. And Daniel has said that Good Samaritan laws don't force people to help, as far as I know. Don't they? They force them to help or pay fines or go to jail or whatever it is. That's compulsion. Good Samaritan laws are compulsion. You help or you lose your freedom. It's almost like Jordan Peterson said, when people would shallowly say the Canadian laws aren't forcing you to use pronouns. He goes, well, what happens if I refuse? You know, and it all comes down to that. It's the same thing with all laws are ultimately enforced at the point of a gun, aren't they? If you don't wish to comply. Well, we're referring to different Good Samaritan laws then, Daniel. I may be imprecise. So let me call them something else because everyone's correcting me. And I would be more than happy to concede if I am the only type of Good Samaritan law I'm familiar with, and I'll put these comments up, is this type that says you have a duty to render aid. So let's not call it that. Let's just say if you want to prioritize, let's go back to the example of prioritizing life over other freedoms, then why wouldn't you want to force someone to render aid if the imposition on their freedom is slight and the other person would die? And let me just put this up here because I love when people correct me. Good Samaritan laws generally protect those who act in good faith to help from legal liability. Funny, and I work in law, but I don't work in that kind of law. I never heard of that. So thank you. Thank you very much for the education. I misunderstood, I think. So thank you. Yeah, I was thinking there were some laws like that, and I thought it was a maritime law. Daniel pointed up that would be true in maritime law, failure to render aid to a vessel in distress. I don't think that's libertarian. I think it's moral. I think you should always help people if you can. And it's not, particularly if it's not at great loss to you. You don't have to risk your life for other people, but listen, if it's nothing for you to give somebody money to keep them from starving, you should, but you can't be forced to. Okay. That's it for Dave Smith. I would appreciate it if, well, Dave sometimes watches my show, I know. Maybe we could have a discussion on this. I would love it. It's an issue that I do talk about quite a bit. I have no idea what the next clip is, so let's just go there. And I got to keep an eye on the time because I'm doing volunteer training at 5.
So Eugene Gu, who is this Stanford-trained doctor, and of course was a big push. He was a big pusher of sort of COVID lockdown, very woke guy. He tweeted this out the other day, and I thought that this is so indicative of how so much of the left thinks, because it is mainstream left-wing thought at this point. He tweeted out, "Black on Asian crimes only occur because of our system of white supremacy that strips African Americans of their economic opportunities while taking respect and dignity away from Asian Americans."
Okay, got my, sorry, I'm doing my contouring, but now I look crazy. Okay, yeah, this whole thing with how if Black people commit violence against Asians, that's also white supremacy, which makes absolutely no sense to me. And you know, it's the great white savior thing. I mean, I hear that, and perhaps I'm more sensitive to it because this happens with women as well. It's like you're robbing Black people of their agency. And I, as a woman, see some things, you know, in laws or excuses that are made for women. And I'm like, you're robbing women of their agency, like they're morally handicapped or something. And that's just so offensive to me. And to tweet that out, I mean, that's just crazy. That's just crazy pants. If somebody commits violence against another person, it's not because of some kind of oppression in another area. I don't even know what to say to that. And also, I really have to break up the Ben Shapiro clips, because he talks so fast. He can squeeze a lot of information into short segments. Like if I play a 5-minute clip from Dave, it's nice and easy going. You pay a 5-minute clip from Ben Shapiro, it's like you might as well slow it down by 75%, or no, I mean by 25%. Plus, YouTube likes to copyright strike, so I have to stop and comment to be sure that it falls under fair use.
Also, white people in power are experts at dividing and conquering to stay in power. So presumably he was speaking about this case that we discussed yesterday on the program in New York City, where a man beat the living hell out of an Asian woman on the street. And it turns out that this particular man happened to be a black man.
Okay, now I'm looking really crazy. And I chopped these up and put it on my channel without the context of me putting on my makeup. I'm putting on my makeup, people. Yeah. So if that was the context of that tweet, how would you feel if you were that Asian woman? It's like you're just made a pawn in this larger narrative. No, the person didn't really beat you up. They beat you up as a symbol of white supremacism. And the funny thing is, when it comes to this whole thing in which there is the narrative of pervasive overweening white privilege, in that whole scenario, it's actually Asians that have greater quote unquote privilege because they actually outperform white people on academic tests, on income earning, and things like that in general. So it's just a weird thing. But let's continue.
And that, frankly, is not supremely surprising in New York City because, as it turns out, a disproportionate number of people who have been victimizing Asian American people are young black people. So Eugene Gu's solution to this, his explanation of this, is that black people have no agency. Black people are not capable of making decisions, you see. And because black people are not capable of making decisions, all of America's structures must be changed so as to make all outcomes equivalent.
I know people are going to disagree with me here. But Ben Shapiro, well, maybe you guys won't. I don't know. Sometimes I anticipate objections that don't exist. Ben Shapiro loves pulling out racial statistics. And I know it's because the left does that too. But I don't agree with anyone doing it. And I don't find it particularly helpful to try to say, well, the majority of this or that is committed by this or that. Unless there's very rare exceptions. Like if there's a murderer on the loose that's a serial killer, it's relevant that most serial killers are white men. Just so you can find the guy before they kill someone else. But when you're not talking about like some dire situation where you're trying to apprehend somebody, I don't know if that statistic is true. And even if it is true, I don't care. Like I don't find it relevant, the race of people that are assaulting people of another race. I just don't. So, I don't know. That just left a bad taste in my mouth where he was trying to say that most crimes against Asians are by young black people. I don't know. He brings things like that up a lot, and I don't like it. Oh, sorry. I have my buttons over here now.
And
Fancy.
that, frankly, is not supremely surprising in New York City because, as it turns out, a disproportionate number of people who have been victimizing Asian American people are young black people. So Eugene Gu's solution to this, his explanation of this, is that black people have no agency. Black people are not capable of making decisions, you see. And because black people are not capable of making decisions, all of America's structures must be changed so as to make all outcomes equivalent.
I don't know this person he's quoting, so I don't know if he's giving a good representation of it, but it certainly seems to be so within the context of a tweet. I mean, you can't deny that environmental factors do affect decision-making and behavior, but this get out of violence free card of, well, no matter what, it's white people's fault, is not healthy for anybody. And it's going to backfire. Like, you can only, for the same reason that I'm not comfortable with saying, oh, most Asian, crimes against Asians are committed by black people. I'm also not comfortable with any kind of vilification of any group of people. I find that people tend to live up to the expectations you have for them. And if you expect white people to be racist, you're going to get more racist white people. If you expect black people to be violent, you're going to get more violent black people. I believe you should think the noblest of people. And then oftentimes people will rise to meet that expectation because they like the visions of themselves that they see in your eyes. I mean, we know this for raising children. I mean, it's a basic tenet of how to win friends and influence people and how to motivate people. That's what leaders do.
Right? Equal rights no longer matter. We're going to have to make decisions for you. We're going to have to be paternalistic. We're going to make decisions for you so that your outcome is equivalent to everybody else's outcome. And if you do something wrong, we're simply going to relieve you of the responsibility. This sounds like David Duke, except in reverse, right? David Duke says that black people have no agency because black people are inferior. The wokeists say black people have no agency because black people are inferior because white people have made them inferior. How about this? Black people aren't inferior. How about black people are just the same as every other individuals in American life? They're just as responsible for their own individual decisions. They are just as capable of success. They're just as capable, as it turns out, of not beating up Asian Americans on the street. And thus, if an individual person beats up an Asian American, no matter the race, that person should be held fully responsible for their level of hatred.
Yeah, that I thought was a good summary. It is funny that the infantilization, sometimes enunciation, I'm going to tell you a funny joke about enunciation, of minorities and women by the left is just like you would expect from like actual sexists and racists. Now here's the funny joke. I was with some friends and they were talking about some musicians, friends of theirs, and or was it a joke? No, I think later on. No, never mind. I'm going to tell you the joke, but like this has happened multiple times in my life. No, this lady was telling a joke about a musician because we were in the middle of talking about musicians. And she said a pianist was walking through the park. And we all looked at her like, what? And her husband goes, enunciation, dear, enunciation. Because you know what we thought she said. So if you ever say pianist, make sure you go pianist, enunciate, dear. Enunciate. Yeah, I've got the humor of a sophomore boy. Continuing.
And by the way, his entire argument, Eugene Gu here, that black on Asian crimes only occur because of white supremacy is utterly insane. On its face, it's crazy. It turns out that the man who is busted now for the attack on this Asian American woman is named Brandon Elliott. He is 38. And it turns out he was arrested in 2002 for the murder of his own mother in the Bronx.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? So was that white supremacy too? This was just a bastard. This was just a violent, bad person. And how the hell was he out of jail? He murdered his mother? Matricide is pretty harsh, man. Like, I don't get it. And I'm wondering if I lost my signal because I haven't had any comments. And that's surprising because all this culture war stuff usually... Oh, now Daniel, Daniel, you must have been reading my mind. Continuing, because Daniel had a comment on the Dave Smith thing, I think still, and I'll get back to that if I can. I want to keep the Ben Shapiro stuff kind of together. Actually, no, let me address it now because I don't want Daniel to think I disagree. Okay, Daniel said any worldview philosophy which cannot properly prioritize the preservation of life, safety, health is most likely deservedly doomed. Depends on how you mean that. I believe the worldview philosophy goes beyond politics and government. Government can't prioritize, but people can. People in their moral worldview. This is why I say libertarian dystopia is possible. Because it requires, because the purview of force is very, very limited. You can't force people not to do bad things. So you have to inculcate a culture and moral worldview, which is why I said you should help somebody. You should prioritize feeding somebody over the $10 in your wallet. It's just that force can't be used for it. So the political aspect of libertarianism is very narrow and is not a complete worldview and would be a hellish world if that was a complete worldview and would be doomed. I would agree there. And David Davis, thank you, Daniel, for letting me answer that question. David Davis says that's the Democratic Party shtick, to view themselves as a parent and people as children. Yeah, I say progressivism is eternal childhood. It's you never leave the womb. You're in the womb to the tomb. Let me remove that and continue.
Now, I have to say this for all the people who are only going to watch 10 seconds of the video and go straight to my comments and call.
Okay, I wanted to stop this. I think we're still on the racist stuff. And let me go to Daniel here. I said all freedoms are equal. No, I didn't, and perhaps I was unclear. I said that in the eyes of the use of force, they are, because you don't get to tell people what's more important to them and you can't force them. But in the eyes of society and individual actors who are moral agents, no, that would be crazy. And I might walk that back a little, because I just had a thought. You know, for one thing, I want to emphasize here, all of these shows and things I do, these are conversations, and I often will be working through things myself, and I often change my mind. I see where I need to be more precise. We cannot say which freedoms are more important to other people and sacrifice one person's freedom for something we think is a more important freedom for another person. I absolutely stand by that. But on another hand, there is obviously, even in law, a prioritization of freedom. So then let me give that example, because I thought of Chris Cantwell, the crying Nazi. When he had his brief libertarian phase, he argued that you could kill somebody for a paperclip because they stole your property and it's your property, and you can kill people for stealing your property. And that's, I think, where proportionality comes in. So I do think there is a prioritization when you're talking about proportionality of used force when there is an actual aggression and force can be used. That wasn't worded artfully, because this is a clarification that just occurred to my mind. Okay, now I want to introduce these clips we have coming up. I believe it's still talking about the Asian violence thing. This guy's channel is called Ruined Leon. I love him. He calls himself the sexiest black man on the internet, and he looks like Will Smith to me, and Will Smith is just gorgeous. So yes, okay, Leon, you are the sexiest black man on the internet, and I love you. I've been binging your content because he's got his head on his shoulders. It's a great channel, but now let's continue, because I figured a lot of you might not be familiar with him, and I've been playing him a lot.
A grifter or a pick-me or a white supremacist or someone who likes sucking white people's dick. But if you enjoy hate crimes, if you enjoy committing hate crimes, if you enjoy making excuses for people committing hate crimes, go fuck yourself. No matter the gender, the race, ethnicity, no matter what you feel inside, no matter if you're having a good or a bad day, if you are going around committing violent acts, participating in violent acts, or making excuses so that the person committing the violent act can get away with it, go fuck yourself right in the ass, because you are the worst type of human being.
with a barbed dildo, I would say. Absolutely agree with him. Couldn't have said it better myself. You're a man after my own heart. I think we share the same spirit animal. I think I took these clips out of order, though, because I think that was the conclusion to a whole shtick that he gave. So let's do the next clip. They might be out of order.
For some reason, there are individuals who will take situations and just throw it at white people and make it a white person's problem. Make it the reason why situations are happening is because of white people. And one of these individuals, Eugene Gu, is going around claiming that if black individuals are attacking the Asian community, it's obviously because of those evil, pasty white people who have better lives than them. I'm going to be completely honest, the tweet Eugene put out before his initial claim of white supremacy was actually a really wise tweet and something that we all need to consider. Hate crimes against Asian Americans have been going on for generations. The media only cares about it now because it's trending. But what happens when the fashion changes and they move on to the next topic? Will that mean all hate crimes just disappear? So disingenuous. Yes, I agree with that. The media does like to talk about things only when they're trending.
Okay, yeah, that's so true. Do you think the media is really all hot and bothered about Asian crimes against Asians. In these communities when the Black Lives Matter riots were going on, a lot of those small business owners were Asians. Because, they're industrious culture. And a lot of Asians are small business owners of those small groceries and small liquor stores. You didn't see them crying their hearts out for the Asians then, did you? It's, as I said, if I was that Asian woman, I would feel like a pawn, not an actual person who got assaulted and had their rights violated. I was a symbol. I was a pawn. It's like, go. I'm trying to stop cussing. So, okay. That's why I let Leon cuss for me. Continuing.
Black on Asian crimes only occur because of our system of white supremacy that strips African Americans of their economic opportunities while taking respect and dignity away from Asian Americans. Also, white people in power are experts at dividing and conquering to stay in power. It's interesting how he's sitting there saying people are using their power to divide people and conquer over others while he's actively dividing people. He's dividing white people, he's dividing black people, and he's dividing Asian people. How are you going to sit there and claim that black people, their reason for attacking another human being who also has a right to exist on this earth, their reason for attacking them is because of the random white dude who's more successful than them?
Yeah. That is so true, is that in the name of curing division, a lot of these people are creating division. Like, you keep using that word, unity. I do not think you know what it means, or I do not think it means what you think it means. You killed my father, prepare to die. It's absolutely crazy. And the thing is, I used to hear in the past, and I can't cite any sources for it because, I don't keep a logbook of these things, but I remember hearing in the past that there was a lot of resentment in the Black community against the Asian community because they were more successful. So now it's not that the Asians themselves are successful, which many of them are much more successful than your average, white bread person, definitely than your average trailer white trash person. And I used to live in a trailer. That's just if you lived in a trailer, God bless you. Or if you live in a trailer, God bless you. You're probably saving a whole lot more money than I am right now. But you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the stereotypes. And yeah, but now it's white people's fault. Everything I guess is white people's fault. I wouldn't, I totally respect Leon because, there are people who use this narrative who don't believe it and are using it to their benefit. Just like there's women who use the sexism narrative and they don't actually believe it. I'm not saying nobody believes it, but there are women who don't believe it that use it because it benefits them. They're like, hey, if I can, it's the type of evil women that fake rape allegations. There's not very many of them, but you're lying to yourself if you think it doesn't happen. Or like that lady on the videotape where, she wasn't getting her way in her marriage and she started punching herself in the face and then was going to claim her husband did it. Yeah, that. Well, and it's the same type of people who fake hate crimes to try to get some kind of clout or advantage or glory for themselves. I mean, that's just human nature. If you give people an opportunity to exploit and lie and swindle, the liars and swindlers are going to take advantage of it. And this guy with that tweet where he talks about white people being experts at keeping themselves in power, you want to know who is an expert at using race issues to keep themselves in money and power? People like Al Sharpton. Anyone can do that. In fact, maybe this guy in the tweet is. I don't know enough about him to say, but it's starting to look that way to me.
There is no amount of white supremacy in the world that should inspire anyone else to attack another human being. That shit is weird, that shit is disrespectful, and it's abhorrent for somebody who is apparently a doctor to spout this type of nonsense.
Yep, absolutely agree. Just, and just for the women who might be interested, I've just started doing like, because I have very, very hooded eyes, my eyeliner like with black eyeshadow instead. And it's not really, it's like faux eyeliner. So if you see how I'm like doing it in the corners here, it's like gives the illusion of a wing. So let me just get this side going here. And you got to use these guides like I'm using. I mean, I have both hooded and downturned eyes, which is a double whammy. And I've always had them. Of course, they get worse with age, but hooded eyes and downturned eyes aren't an age thing. I mean, you could develop them with age when you didn't have them before, but it's also just a type of eye shape. I'm going to blend this, so don't be alarmed. That's not blended yet. I know it looks funky without it being blended. Not that the guys were alarmed, but I don't know, maybe are. The biggest booty gurus are men. Jeffree Star, James Charles, and boy, is there some drama going on with that right now. James Charles can't seem to stop sending instant messages to minors. Once you got in trouble for that once, do you think you'd learn? Don't get it. I don't get it at all. Okay, we're going to go to the next clip in a minute, but I'm trying to find a good blending. This is a good blending brush, I think. Okay.
In a democracy, the people rule. If voters want something done over time, it happens. That's what self-government is. But what do you call a system in which all the really important decisions are made by big companies without any reference at all to what voters want?
Okay, that was just a really short clip because I like pointing out Tucker Carlson's hypocrisy or cognitive dissonance. Really, what voters, who are these voters you speak of? Is it, you mean the majority? And so if the majority decide they want something, but the 49% don't want it, that's somehow self-government. Certainly not self-government for those who are getting forced by the rest. Like, I used to spout these platitudes too and didn't see the inherent contradiction. So I like pointing it out. So I don't think he's being illogical or internally inconsistent on purpose. I think we're like brainwashed into it. And that when you step back and think about it, you're like, let me tell you a story. Like, I was dealing with a progressive friend of mine arguing about whether or not taxation was theft. And to me, that's just like obvious now. And, you know, he was arguing that it wasn't. And I said, but I don't want to pay it. I don't want to. And then I go, so what happens if I refuse? And he kind of like had to step back the minute I was like, I don't consent. You know, when talking with leftists, really the consent issue does bear fruit because they really respect consent, or at least pay lip service to it. The politicians don't, but your average everyday leftist does. So focus on the consent issue, and I found it's very effective. Like, it does make them think. Okay, I'm just brightening up the eyelid corner here a little bit. And I am still going to put some eyeliner on, but I don't have to put as much when I use the black eyeshadow. Okay, next.
What is Ben Shapiro's favorite song?
I said certified freak. 7 days a week. Wet ass P word. Make that pullout game weak. Yeah, you effin' with some wet ass P word. Bring a bucket and a mop for this wet ass P word. Give me everything you've got for this wet ass P word.
I just did that as a joke because I think it's funny. I'm surprised he even asked that question on air. What's his favorite song? Because he's still the laughing stock of the internet for that. Okay, got the eyeliner on there. I'll do the other eye in a minute. I've got another one where he's asking a question.
Is Ben Shapiro libertarian? So when it comes to the role of government, I'm generally libertarian. When it comes to the role of social structures, I'm a conservative, right? So I don't think that the job of the government is to cram down my particular social values. I do think that you need a rich and robust social structure that is capable of inculcating those values into citizenry. And I think that if you had to sort of embody what I believe about government in one quote, it would be the John Adams quote, that the Constitution was written for moral and religious people and no other, because the Constitution, in the absence of a moral and religious people, the people would just rush through the boundaries of the Constitution like a whale through a net.
Like a whale through a net? Wouldn't a net catch a whale? I think he meant water through a net. I don't know. I just noticed that weird. I think he screwed that up. No, Ben, I think you are oversimplifying your views on government, unless I misunderstand you. I don't watch, everything that Ben puts out. But I remember when those bathroom laws were going into effect. I'm not talking about the bathroom laws mandating the bathroom issue. I'm talking about the bathroom laws. I can't remember. It was a southern state where they were trying to outlaw private businesses having, not, what's the way to put it? Being absolutely fine with transgender people using the bathroom of their identified gender. And I don't remember him condemning state action for that. So on some things, he's somewhat libertarian. But then again, the word libertarian, kind of like the words radical and moderate, has so many meanings. I don't think he's a political libertarian, because he is fine with the state doing certain things. He might be less fine than other Republicans, but I wouldn't call him libertarian. He's certainly not a social libertarian. And when it comes to libertarianism just as a worldview philosophy, it gets much more muddier. Some people would say that you have to be very personally liberal to be a libertarian. And a lot of people in the Libertarian Party think that. I don't believe that's true. I believe you can be very, very socially conservative and be a libertarian. I don't happen to be socially conservative. And I do agree with him in the abstract that you have to have a society that will uphold freedom, or you have to have a society that will uphold good morals. He and I would probably disagree on what some of those good morals are. And I don't think religion is required for it, even though I am a religious person myself. Okay, continuing.
Final note, the evidence is additionally coming out in the George Floyd case. And as it turns out, there's pretty powerful evidence, according to Andy McCarthy at National Review, that George Floyd resisted arrest. There's also a fair bit of evidence that one of the other people in the car with George Floyd may have been his drug dealer. So the defense is starting to put up its case. Watch over the course of the next week as the media attempt to elide the case completely. They will cover the prosecution. They will not cover the defense. You will not know. The jurors are hearing a pretty shaded version of what happened that day, so that if Derek Chauvin is acquitted, it will be blamed on American racism rather than on the very complicated fact patterns of this particular case.
There isn't a complicated fact pattern, Ben. Kiss my ass. Who cares? I don't care. Oh, my nose is dripping a little. I don't care if he resisted arrest. That's not a capital offense. I don't care. I don't care if his drug dealer was in the car. What does that have to do with anything? The guy used drugs. Whoop-de-doo. I don't care. That does not justify what happened to him. Ben didn't give any, mitigation there. There's no mitigation. You don't get to kill somebody if they resisted arrest. You don't get to say that life is not worth as much, or it's justified to use more force against him because his drug dealer might have been in the car. I don't care. And Ben has just completely misrepresented this whole thing from the beginning. I've done a whole show on it called Don't Cry for Me, Ben Shapiro. The facts on the George Floyd case don't care about your feelings. I would highly encourage you to go watch that. He really, really angers me with this.
When done right, representation could actually be a good thing. And when done wrong, you have a bunch of people standing on pins and needles trying to not get canceled by a bunch of random people on Twitter. And you have these weirdos who think that if they make a black version of everything, then it means that all the black people care about them and that they're fighting against white people and all of the evil people that stand against representation. Meanwhile, black people see that and they look at you like you're fucking stupid.
Okay. This is very interesting clip, I think, that's coming up, a whole segment. And I think this is the last ones I have. I'm going to disagree with Leon, which is funny. It's about a black issue, and here I am, a white woman, disagreeing with the black man about a black issue. I could be wrong, quite obviously, but I'm going to give my perspective. I don't think I don't have a right to have an opinion just because I'm a white woman and not a black man, though sex has nothing to do with this. Just because I'm white, or just like I don't think the argument that men have no say on abortion because they don't have a uterus is just completely stupid. So while I would certainly respect his point of view, and I actually do think sex comes into it, he doesn't bring sex into it, but I am, because I think I disagree with him because I'm a woman and it's outside of being black or white. So, but I found it interesting where he talks about how a lot of the white virtue signaling that is done, the black people look at it and like, you look like an idiot, you look like a damn fool. You think you're being a hero and you just end up looking like a muppet. You know, it's just ridiculous. Oh, I must be feeling better because, like, have you noticed my under eyes are so much better? It didn't even occur to me that I needed to do concealer. Like, that's a miracle treatment. But if you guys are still listening and you have an opinion on the subject that's coming up, please, I would love to interact with you on it. So let's go to the next clip.
White privilege. Think about it. Whose flesh tone is this?
Okay. So that's the example of someone being ridiculous that he gives. And that lady herself, in the full clip, got really weirdly emotional. And I do think just the way she addressed the issue was being ridiculous. But I don't think the Band-Aid issue is ridiculous. And he's going to explain why he thinks it is. And then I'm going to give you my experiences. Really, really would love to hear y'all's thoughts. Okay, well, the concealer is brightening my under eye a bit, and I need to powder it, but yeah, I didn't sleep last night either, and I don't have big bags. That's crazy. Because I slept a lot during the day, so I don't want to make it seem like I didn't get any sleep yesterday. It's just, I got up at 10 and stayed up all night. Okay, let's go to his next clip.
I have brown Band-Aids in my classroom. I had to special order them. They're twice as much as these, and they're hard to find, and they're frequently out of stock. But when I hand a brown child a white Band-Aid, I am literally adding insult to injury, and I refuse to do that in my classroom.
Okay, that was stupid. You're not wounding them in addition to whatever wound that they have. And I think Leon brings this up later, but she's dealing with small children. Don't give them a black one or a white one. Give them ones with characters on it. That's what they want. They want the fun ones. They don't want the boring adult bandages. Problem solved. But yeah, that was ridiculous. Adding insult. Over dramatic much, lady? Did you literally cut them with the offensive white Band-Aid? I mean, she took it too far. And what am I looking for? I want to do my lashes. Hold on one sec. I'm going down here to get my Lashify out. Oh, and I need these too. Yep, got my lashes. Okay. And you guys are being quiet, making me beg. Bad. Maybe I need to maybe I need to cuss. That gets everybody riled up. Okay, so I got my Lashify wand, they call it bondage, for the glue. And let me find what lashes I want to put on before we continue with this. Nope, not those. I want to put on the big fluffy ones, I think. Yep, here we go. All right, let's continue. I'm having a feeling like my comments much is frozen. There can't be no way there hasn't been any comments since Daniel's last comment.
So you mean to tell me you're wasting your money on Band-Aids so that the random black kid who gets a cut on their leg feels represented because of a black Band-Aid? I thought the entire purpose of a Band-Aid was to soak up the blood that's gushing from my dick. I'm not worried about being represented by the fucking Band-Aid.
Okay. Here's where I start to disagree with him. Like, he thinks it's a completely trivial issue that the Band-Aids, which are supposed to be in flesh tone, and they're even called flesh tone, they might not do that anymore, is beige, is a certain kind of flesh tone. Now, I remember when I was first learning about the concept of white privilege and things like that, which I don't deny that there are many privileges in life. And some of them are because you're white. I have some privileges because I'm female. Man, I'm having a hard time. Let me put these lash on. It's hard for me to do it because I take medication that makes me very shaky. My antidepressant Zoloft makes me very, very shaky. But I disagree with him that it's not important. And here's where I said I think it is my female perspective that's coming in. I believe that for a man, that's not a big deal. I can see why he says that the man has a strictly utilitarian view of the bandage. But women are much more fashion conscious in general, or style conscious. And they're also, I'm listening to this book right now about brain differences in men and women, and there are some, sorry, feminists. And the way women are much more sensitive to gradations of color and matching. That's why women will say something is eggplant or eggshell or cyan, or pumpernickel, where men will just go, it's blue, it's white, it's green. I think I'm more sensitive to it because of that it's very glaring to me that flesh tone is a one-size-fits-all thing. And if you're a dark-skinned black person, that beige bandage will stick out like a sore thumb. And it is somewhat insulting that the underlying presumption of flesh is not your flesh. It does visually separate you from the rest of humanity. Not in some big existential way. It's nothing to, have a crisis over. But I do think it sends a message through life when consistently flesh tone isn't your flesh. And I think this resonates more with girls, which is why do you think they made black Barbies? If the tone didn't matter, then why did they have different races of Barbies? And why, when I was growing up, I wanted all races of the dolls. And my parents are from a different time, and they've since passed away. But it bothered my parents. I don't think my mom so much as my dad, that when I used to love baby dolls, like walking around with the baby dolls. It's funny because I don't like, not that I dislike babies, but I've never even held a real baby. I don't have maternal instincts, but I loved my baby dolls. And I wanted a bunch of black baby dolls. I wanted the whole rainbow. So why would it somewhat disturb white parents if their children want black dolls? And why do black children want black dolls? Or why is it appropriate to have black dolls? And if you ever watch that interview with the young black girls, it makes a difference. So they were asked to compare like two dolls, and the white one to them was beautiful, and the black one was ugly. That's sad. That is really, really sad. And girls are much more sensitive to that. So I can see how it's not important to Leon. I would like to hear a black woman with the same kind of political take as Leon's take on this. But I want to show you guys something, because maybe it won't strike you, but once it struck me, it really had a profound impact on me. And it was all about the Band-Aids. But then I started looking at other issues. Hold on, I'm trying to find some things I want to pull up. I think it's here. Let me go here. Yes. Okay. So, like, take a look at these things. Okay, this is now a modern underwear company. But it used to be that nude underwear were just in a light beige shade. But like, say you were this much darker skinned woman, that's second from the right. You put on beige and it'd be showing through your clothes, and look how wonderfully that darker set matches her. And look at all these different shades of women. There's a lot of times you need to wear underwear that's not going to show through your clothing. And a one size fits all. I mean, look at this beautiful dark brown slip on the lady second from the right. And look at all these different skin tones. So this was very important to women. And all these examples I'm showing, though I did find some men's underwear that did the same thing, I bet you those don't sell as well. I don't think men give a shit on things like that. But let me show you some more examples. Here's some more. And look at all these shades, where even for some very pale-skinned white women, that the beige would, like the beige that's normally nude would be usually, if you go to the woman on the far right, that's a typical nude color, or maybe sometimes the woman on the far left. But if you start dealing with some of these, like the lady that's third from the right, who's like blindingly white, that wouldn't look good on her either. So you have the two extremes there. If you look at the lady that's second from the left and third from the left, you got very, very dark and very, very light. And it didn't serve them. But at least the beige on the super light woman wasn't as bad as the beige on the super dark woman. It was closer to light than dark. And let me give you one more example. This men will not understand. But check out these shoes. Because nude in shoes is a big deal for women. But it was always that beige color. But look at this line. It's very popular shoes that are in all shades of nude. And why are nude shade shoes very important to women? I'm going to give you guys a lesson here, more on the art of female deception. A, because it matches everything, but that isn't the reason. It's B, when you wear flesh tone shoes that are close to your flesh tone, it makes your legs look longer. That's another reason why some, like ice skaters, really prefer the nude colored ice skates rather than white or black. And if you watch an ice skater, a figure skater, I mean, on like the Olympics or whatever, watch the difference, like in just the visual presentation of one who's wearing different colored skates and the ones who are wearing ones that match their skin tone. And there is a different elegance. That's another reason sometimes why women will wear nude tones on their fingernails, which I never do. But it makes your fingers look longer and elegant if you have kind of stubby fingers. I've got long, gangly fingers, so I hope seeing these things show that how it could be more of a female point of view, and why I didn't think it was silly. Now I forgot what clip I was on, so I might have to skip around. I think I was right here. No,
I have brown
right
band-aids
here.
in my class.
Here, maybe.
How do you sit there and think that this is going to help children and this is going to be something that is inspiring young kids? And yes, I see you, I hear you, you're represented by me because I spent all of this money on a Band-Aid for you. You can't have the white Band-Aid because that's for the white kids. Here, take this black Band-Aid because I can't see it on your skin, mon ami. Not to mention all the different shades of black, all the different shades of white. You're going to have this big patch on you that's probably discolored from your actual skin, so you're wasting your money. It's a fucking Band-Aid. There's no other reason for the Band-Aid other than to soak up blood.
Okay, see, that's where I disagree with him. Maybe for boys, but not for girls. And it doesn't match anyone exactly. but it is closer to a Caucasian skin tone. That's why it's called nude in a predominantly Caucasian society. Like, I don't think this is some great white conspiracy. It's not some, we're going to make it Caucasian because of white supremacy. It's because most people in the country were white at the time those were invented, and demographics are changing. And I see David said that you can buy the dark brown bandages at Target. And I think, and listen, stores need to sell what their customers want. I don't think you need to have necessarily a representation of Band-Aids if you're in an area where there isn't a lot of minorities. The market will provide. And, perhaps to a little boy, it's not different, but to a little girl, it can be different. And the reason they cost more, and I don't think that's a black tax or anything like that, it's because there isn't as much of a demand for them. And, that's not any kind of racism or anything like that. I'm surprised nobody has said that. Well, I'm sure they do. I just haven't heard that. So, but he raised an interesting point that I didn't consider, where he was like, it might feel like you're singling the black person out in a way they don't want to be singled out. Like, oh, you can't have the white Band-Aid. You can't have the white Band-Aid because it's for the white kids, like a separate water fountain or something. And I didn't really consider that it might, having the different colors might boomerang on the self-esteem of some kids. But I don't, the way the teacher can solve this, and I appreciate that the teacher's sensitive to this, though she was way over dramatic. Hold on, let me stick this eyelash on if I can. Okay, got on. Is to have a box of Band-Aids and just let the kids pick them out. And I bet you they'll pick out the characters each time, Disney characters or whatever. Are you allowed to have Disney now, or is Disney sexist or racist or whatever the is are? Speciesist, right? Because some animals have pants and some don't. And David also brought up that there are clear bandages as well. That's another solution, of course. I think when Band-Aids were invented's not the right word, because I think they've been around for a while. But I mean, when that's not something that really changes that much. That perhaps the technology wasn't available. So we're kind of stuck in the way things have been, because why, something ain't broke, why fix it type thing. Where did I put my lashes? Oh, I put them down here. I wanted to show you guys this. So this is for the Lashify system, which is at-home eyelash extensions. So you get them in these little things. So if you men are wondering, not that I necessarily think you are, I only got like 20 minutes left. I got to get these freaking eyelashes on. But we're almost done here. But feels like I'm crimping them on, if you're wondering. I'm bonding them to the lashes. Okay, let's continue. Oh, that was the wrong one. Oh, okay, that was probably it. Okay, so I did give all of my thoughts on that. I do think it's important. I think he downplayed it, but that teacher lady overplayed it. And for the last few minutes, I want to talk about that case that just happened. And I'll be talking about it a lot more with that cop who killed that black man in Minneapolis, I think it was, because she thought her gun was a taser. What do you guys think of that case? I'm hearing all kinds of points of view, and I don't really like giving opinions till more facts come out. But I think, there's enough facts out to start to have a discussion. Do you find it believable that she thought it was a taser? And if so, did you watch the video? Because in isolation, I probably could have understood that. Though, mind you, I don't know anything about guns or tasers. So, take that for what it's worth. I've never held a taser. But she, in the video, before she shot and before she yelled out, "Taser, taser," where, the officers were planning on tasering this man, Her gun was already out and pointed, like in front of her. She had her arm out in front of her. She didn't see that it wasn't a taser. Like, I can see getting confused in the, quick draw, like how people sometimes hit the gas instead of the brakes and they plow into buildings. But she had it out already. It was right there in her line of sight. Like, was something going on with her? Like, was she having some crisis in life where she was just really, really distracted and not in the moment? Because in watching the video, it's like hard to believe she mistook it for a taser, but it's also hard to believe like she's lying. Like, I don't think she's lying. Her shock and her, oh my God, I shot him, rings true to me. So how was it that she didn't notice? Was she incompetent? Was she poorly trained? Or really, was she distracted? And that bothers me even more. You got these people around, or maybe she was on medication. But if you're carrying a weapon with the mandate from the state that you're allowed to use it, the justified use of force, you've got to have the clearest mind. You can't be on medication that would fuzz your thinking, or if you're going through some life crisis, you've got to do the responsible thing and call in if you can't responsibly handle a firearm. And tasers can kill people too, but I'm just, dealing with this. And one shot, man, that guy had the worst luck. He didn't even get a shot that, he died. But that is such the weirdest thing. But I saw the family just saying, though, they believe she was lying. Do you guys think I just can't see that in the video. Her shock seemed very, very real. But that doesn't mean if she made a mistake that she's not criminally responsible. I mean, it's definitely negligence and manslaughter. And always this side's always harder because it's the, not my dominant side. So yeah, is that crazy or what? All right, I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes, not literal minutes because minutes are longer than they seem, but to see if there's any closing comments. I'd like you to keep me company with some comments while I'm finishing my eyelashes, but if you don't, we can finish. I've got like 15 minutes until my training. So let me talk about the training I'm doing is for Elpedia. We did a cattle call for volunteers because I have a ton of data that needs to be put up on Elpedia. And I got like 50 people who signed up to be volunteers. So I've been doing volunteer training sessions. But if any of you guys want in on that, let me know. I'll set you up. It's a great volunteer opportunity. You learn a lot about party history. You can volunteer on your own schedule. It's very flexible. You can do it in the nude if you want to. Just don't tell me about it. You're allowed to wiki in the nude. And we really need the help. So if you were looking for a way to volunteer for the party, hit me up. Because a lot of people can't do other volunteer activities because they're either not in that area or they're not available for the time frames needed. Well, this is something anyone can do from anywhere. Also, I want to pimp Elpedia a little bit more as well. If you're renewing your membership or you're getting a life membership, please consider earmarking your funds to Elpedia. I have to raise our budget. Well, I don't have to. I've committed to for multiple reasons. So, yeah, I would really appreciate it if you support the historical work, because not everyone on the LNC does. I have to tell you quite candidly right now, there's at least one LNC member that's trying to torpedo the project. I'll tell you who in private if you're curious, but anybody who pays attention to the LNC meetings knows. Oh, did it fall? Yep, hold on. So yeah, I really need to raise our budget to be as under the radar as possible. So if you guys support the historical project, please consider earmarking or just making a separate donation. if you make a separate donation of $50 and I have your size in a tan staffel t-shirt, I can get that to you. We had a bunch made last year and I still have some. And I believe I have them in mediums and in larges. So for a donation of $50 to the Historical Committee, you can get one of those. Okay, yeah, I got my eyelashes on. Oh, crap, I didn't curl my hair. Well, I can do that later. Now I'm going to work on my lipstick. I'm trying to get a complete look in so you guys can see a finished product, because lately I've been doing it midway and you only see me in clown phase. So I'm going to do the lip liner. Man, my shakes are really bad today. Okay, got that on a little bit. Where's my lip brush? So also tonight, for the show tonight for on ballot access, there is a crazy Michigan case. Is it Michigan or Montana? It's Montana, I think. A crazy Montana. Yeah, Montana. Crazy Montana case I want to tell you about. So if you were ever interested in learning more about the ballot access issues and you just like didn't have the time to sit down and study it, I'm going to make that a regular feature if enough people want it on my YouTube channel. Okay, as I'm putting on my lipstick, you guys, let me know your opinions on the Band-Aids. I'm really interested. I guess it's because mostly guys are watching and my thing, my prediction held true. If there's any women listening, I'd really love to hear it. See, the complete look's coming together. The way lipstick pulls a look together is amazing. There we go. So now I've got the complete look. What do you think? What do you think? All right. And heading out to the volunteer training. I hope to see you guys later tonight. And once again, I want to do a thank you to all of my patrons. You guys, you're wonderful. I cannot tell you, like, the way you've come through for me, like on days that I was down and I see that I've got a patron. It's like, oh my God. So you can really make my day today as well if you go to patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. If you enjoyed this type of content, please, please do support me. And William commented that he agrees with me. I'm still working on my lipstick a little bit, that most kids want character Band-Aids. Let me tell you, as an adult, I want character Band-Aids, or at least like bright pink ones. But I'm still a kid at heart, quite obviously. All right, everyone. So also on Patreon, and I'm thinking of, after I see if there's interest in the ballot access, I might start making that an early release to patrons. But right now, we are going through Fear and Loathing on the campaign trail. We are on March 1972. We're learning a lot about the history of that time, and that is patron-only content. So if you are interested in that, come check it out. I appreciate all of you, and let's back up here so I could say goodbye. Here we go. All right. Bye, everyone, and hope to see you tonight. Mi guapas de libertad. Let's go through here. Closing.
You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business.